Fusionary Health, my podcast where I interview the best of the best in health and wellness. I have the pleasure of meeting the most incredible practitioners and doctors all over, and I want to share their wisdom with you. And on this podcast, occasionally, every month, I want to share a solo episode where I get a chance to dive into Ayurveda, my favorite topic, and share with you the wisdom and share with you a deep dive into certain topics that I think are so relevant to us on our journey to health and wellness. So let's dive in. Today's topic is going to be the doshas. And most people have kind of heard about the doshas, but they don't quite understand what it is. So let's backtrack for a moment. Ayurveda is a system of health and healing from India that's over 5,000 years old. And it's an entire system of medicine that has been brought to us to help us keep our body, mind, and spirit aligned and balanced. And so the doshas are really a understanding of ourselves, kind of like you can take the Myers-Briggs, or you can take your human design, or you can reach into astrology. There's a lot of ways that people are trying to self-understand themselves, like we're doing personal development, diving into spirituality. So on this journey of better understanding ourselves, the doshas are one more powerful tool to gain that self-understanding and thus customize our lives in a new way, and also understand what our innate nature is and have forgiveness for it, or an understanding of it that makes us more sympathetic to ourselves as opposed to fighting with ourselves and battling with ourselves. So in Ayurveda, we very much live according to nature. We teach that nature runs everything. We are born of Mother Earth. We're going to go back into Mother Earth. And so if we learn to live with the cycles of nature, the rhythm of nature, the schedule of nature, then having optimal health or vibrant health is that much easier. And when you take the elements of nature, fire, water, earth, air, and ether, you take the 5 elements and you break them down into different groupings, then you have the different constitutions or mind-body constitutions that Ayurveda says is what makes up all of us. So the 3 doshas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Most people here in the West say Vata, Pitta, and Kapha for those. I'm going to say it my way, but I wanted to share that so you know that if you want to say it the other way, totally understand. Not everyone has the ability to pronounce everything like they're from India. But these 3 doshas are really profound, because if you're a Vata person, that really dictates your nature, your way of being, the way your mind works, your body type. It dictates the predisposition you have to get certain health issues. It dictates why you are the way you are. Same with Pitta, same with Kapha. So I'm going to explain each of them and then give you some tips to help balance you. And this might be one of the most popular episodes because I get interviewed on hundreds of podcasts. And when I'm interviewed, they always ask me, tell us about the doshas and how do we stay more balanced? Because once people have an awareness of Ayurveda, usually once you understand Ayurveda, you're going to hear about the doshas. And then you'll hear about a couple of other popular topics we have, like circadian rhythm, our self-care rituals for detoxification, oil pulling, tongue scraping, our herbs and spices like turmeric and ginger, our superfoods like adaptogens and ashwagandha. There's a lot of topics out of Ayurveda that are becoming popular. One of the more complex ones is doshas. And it usually takes me like a few weeks in my group program to help people understand their dosha from birth, understand their dosha now and whatever imbalances they're struggling with. And then we begin to do the work to return them back to the way they are. So I'll kick this off by sharing a story. I am a born Pitta. And when I used to travel through India with my family, in college especially, I made it my mission to go to every single Ayurvedic detox spa in India. And it was a great endeavor to go on because we went to like 7-star places that were so luxurious. We went to really basic places where I wanted to run away, but they were very authentic and rough. And it was a great detox, so I stuck through. But I remember I was with Dr. Balaji Tambe in India, in Pune, and he said, you are a Pitta. This is what your pulse diagnosis tells me. You're a pure Pitta. And I said, it's so weird because I have such a Vata mind. I'm like this creative girl who wants to create 5,000 things and can't stay focused. He said, that's just an imbalance. You are naturally a Pitta and your job is to align to it. And so it was just interesting because as I meet people now, I can tell what their innate dosha is and I can tell what their imbalances are. And I just look at them like, it's okay. You just have to do the work. And if you do the work to bring your body into balance, then you get to feel whole again. And another story I'll share with you, when I had my daughter 12 years ago, I was at the peak of health and fitness. I was so in shape. I was like, I'm going to enter this pregnancy awesome and detoxed and healthy so that it doesn't like throw me for a loop. And as anyone knows who's had children, pregnancy will inevitably throw you for a loop. And I felt like someone had picked me up, dropped me off in Siberia. And at the moment, I felt like I was like a Tom Brady in my career and in my fitness levels. And they left me in Siberia with no cell phone, no credit cards, and no way to get back. And I had to crawl my way back to the US to find my home, to find myself and build myself back up to my level of fitness and health that I had before. And it took years. And that to me was excruciating. And so I now do the work consistently and constantly to have the level of health that I always crave. And I maintain it at the highest level. I would say 90% of the time, I'm not perfect, but I maintain my health at the best level that I can so that I never feel like that again. Because to be heavy and slow and lethargic and tired, to have brain fog to a point where I couldn't remember like 80% of what was inside of my brain. I couldn't remember anything I was told to do for a given day. And just to feel that way in my body was horrible. And so that's when I took my Kapha body, which is what I had been shoved into, a different dosha called Kapha, and I walked myself back to my Pitta self, and I realigned myself back to my original dosha. So I share that so that you understand the importance of knowing your dosha and calibrating to it consistently and keeping it top of mind so you can be your most balanced self. So let's dive in. A Vata person is typically someone who's thin and wiry, and you're going to hear me describe all three, and you might think that you are one or two of them. That's common. We always have a primary dosha and a secondary dosha. Some people can be three doshic. They can be all three equally. It's interesting though, because if you dive a little deeper by a layer, I can usually see that they're usually more like Vata mind, Pitta in their body, and Kapha in another area of their lives. Like you can kind of see which aspect of them, maybe emotionally they're one way, mentally, physically another way. Like there's a texture there. There's like an understanding that you can have that they're not completely balanced. They could balance body in this way, mind in that way. Another thing to know is a concept called prakruti and vakruti. So you are born of your parents, just like we believe astrology comes down to birthplace and birth time, because there's Jyotish astrology, yoga, Ayurveda. These are all sister sciences. Just like your astrology at birth is decided by that time and place, in the same way in Ayurveda, you are the combination of your two parents. So those natures and doshas of your parents and the season in which you are born and the timing and their like mood and mindset and everything at time of conception is what constitutes and contributes to your constitution. So there is actually a lot of thought in Ayurveda that goes into when and how we conceive our children. It's not so random. You can be very planned in how you approach the pregnancy of your dreams and having and building a Zen child. I'm a big fan of that. So I wrote a book called The Conscious Pregnancy because back in the day, that was my topic. I was very interested in how we handle a pregnancy Ayurvedically so that we can birth beautiful, brilliant, healthy, balanced children. But getting back to it. So your dosha is decided at birth. And then what happens is people have tragedies, traumas, huge life shifts that can happen. And once those different things happen throughout your lives, you can have life shifts at any point that are tremendous. Then you could end up in like a vitiated or imbalanced version of your dosha. And that's very common. So some people I meet, it's rare, but some people have their dosha from childhood and they are still that. And I'm very happy for them because they're the people who kind of feel more balanced in their bodies. So let's dive back into the dosha. Vata. Vata is the element of air and ether. That's the predominant elements that drive that mind-body constitution. So this person is typically thin and wiry. They're lighter. Imagine something that air and the ether can move. They're guided by the traits of those elements. So air and ether, right? So it's someone who's always in motion. They're always running or moving. These are the people who love spin class, who just like the pandemic started and they just got outside and started running miles and biking miles and all those things. They couldn't sit still. Their mind is the same way. It's like a tornado. It's constantly in motion. They can't stop and sit. They're like an Energizer bunny switched on at all times. A Vata person has so many thoughts and ideas, they have a hard time sleeping. They're also the creatives. So they're the artists. They're out there painting and doing and creating, and they're doing their craft constantly, whatever that is. And they can sometimes be accused of not finishing things, like not reaching completion on any given project. That's one of the drawbacks that Vatas suffer from most, is they won't complete things. Then they're considered flaky, or they're considered just people who flit about doing things, but not completing what they start, not finishing or not keeping their word in a sense. But truly they're just creative and their mind is just generating the next idea and the next idea. So Vatas usually need a very Kapha person who can ground them to help them ground their ideas and then complete them. Vata people tend to eat like birds. So they'll eat like a handful of nuts, a little green juice, a tea. They don't have to have a real meal in their day. They'll just keep grabbing a handful of whatever as they run around. The Vata people are, they're not good sleepers because they have so much going on in their minds. They're very light, fitful sleepers. Their digestion isn't amazing because they don't have that like oleation. They don't eat real meals. So they kind of have that like IBS type of constitution. And really just imagine air and ether. It's someone who's just like constantly in motion. So sometimes I meet very imbalanced Vatas who are like, if I sit next to them, I can feel the tornado of the energy within them. They're so, it's almost like a deranged is the wrong word, but they're like an anxious energy, like oh my gosh, like I can't sit down. I can't sit still. Everything's out of whack. I don't understand. And I just need something to ground me. So the homework for the Vata crew is eat 3 grounding meals and hold to a very set schedule that you do every single day, no matter what. And that homework is kind of excruciating for a Vata. So it's really interesting. If you say that to a Vata, they're going to cringe and cower and hide and say, please, of all the things in the world, don't make me eat 3 square meals a day or live by a regular schedule, because it like cramps their style and tortures them a bit. But it's really the launching pad for success, because it's the way to ground them, center, align, bring them into wholeness and feeling more nourished. So all of their creations, they can take across the finish line and finish. And a lot of those health issues, the sleep, the anxiety, they have a tendency towards anxiety, the IBS type issues, all of those things can come into balance because now they're grounding that energy down a little bit, taking it down a few notches, and they get the support they need. So that's what I love about Ayurveda is we have very simple tools to fix things. I usually fix everyone's problems with fixing gut health. Gut dysbiosis is always number 1. Number 2, fix your sleep. If you improve sleep quality, you're going to decrease inflammation, move the lymphatic system, and allow the body to heal itself. We want the body to just learn how to heal itself, so we don't have to take external factors at all to heal them, to heal ourselves. Then there's herbs and supplements. I'm a big fan of herbal supplements and turmeric and all the things we can use to create the shift we need in the body until the body can self-sustain the result. And then food, diet is a huge part of the medicine we give ourselves. And you'll hear this on many of the podcast interviews I'm going to do. We're going to talk about food. What we eat matters. How much love we put into the body matters. And if we're going to eat empty calories, empty junk, empty trash full of processed junk, the body has zero support. It's like filling a gas tank with air and saying, please, Maserati, go run. It doesn't work that way. We have to actively choose. So I'll get off my soapbox. Let me get back to the doshas. But the Vata dosha is a very interesting dosha because here in the West and in modern day society across the world, we're living this life of constantly being accessible. My Facebook, my Instagram, every app is pinging me all day long. There's always more to do. The list of things to do never ends. And so in the case of Vata, that dosha is actually very common in terms of being an imbalance in most of us, because our Vata mind is always going 200 miles an hour on do more. And thus we never let the mind and body and system, our hormonal system as well, relax, recharge, regenerate so that we can go back at it the next day. So Vata is actually a problem for like 90% of people to some extent. So it's something to keep in mind. Now, the next dosha is called Pitta. You can pronounce it Pitta. But Pitta dosha is the dosha that's most driven by fire, but it's also got some water element in it as well. So a Pitta person is typically medium body. This is someone who is like in the middle, not more on the thin side like Vata, and not on the more heavy, strong, big bone side like Kapha. They're just right in the middle. So well-formed in their body shape, tendency to have a red face, red hair, everything red, kind of like fire, can have premature graying, kind of like they're going too fast. So premature graying is common. This is someone who is usually like medium in terms of strength and everything as well. Pittas tend to have good sleep. Pittas tend to have very good digestion. So a Pitta person has not just the fire element, but their digestive fire in their body is powerful to the point that they get really hangry. So this is like your eater. A Pitta will sit down and eat. You don't have to tell a Pitta to eat, and they will eat their 3 square meals a day, no matter what, because they have to. They can maybe limit it down to 2, but not any less. I can't see a Pitta eating 1 meal a day. It'll be a challenge. Pitta people tend to have the element of fire in their nature. So this is someone who is a go-getter, a fiery personality. They have like these piercing eyes. This is someone who's more on the entrepreneurial side. Like they want to create things. They want to convert and build and grow. They can almost seem aggressive in business sometimes because they're such go-getters. Their negative traits are they get jealous and angry very easily. And so Pitta people really have to watch themselves, because if they're not managing themselves through their day, their automatic default is to be angry and frustrated and take it out on the people they love. There's only so much the people around you will take it. Pitta people from a health standpoint will have heartburn. They're going to have anything that's like too fire. They can have inflammatory based issues. They're not supposed to eat spicy foods and hot things, but that's all they will crave is everything that's going to ignite them more. I am a Pitta by birth, so I eat hot sauce on everything. I want everything spicy, even though that's not good for me. And so it's funny, when you know your dosha really well, you can also know how to constantly calibrate and balance to your dosha. So Pitta people, when they're imbalanced, will burn out. They're going to explode like a volcano, you can imagine, destroying everything in their path. They can be very destructive in that way when imbalanced. And so the way that a Pitta person stays in balance is, first of all, know your seasons. So every dosha has a predominance in a season. For the Pittas, it's summer. Summer is the hottest season. And when it's burning hot outside, Pittas are going to be more aggravated, more agitated. So in the summer, Pittas are supposed to go and travel to cooler places, go in the mountains, go near the water. This is not the person who needs to sit on the beach all day and cook in the sun. Pitta people also should have tools on hand constantly to cool them down, because even though they might not be like sweating and hot in the sense of like what you see from the inside, at any given moment, they might be imbalanced or frustrated. So for example, in my case, I keep coconut water in my fridge. I have dark chocolate with almonds because a sweet food is very cooling to the system. Coconut water is very cooling. Fruit is very cooling. Any summer food is very cooling. So if you're like in a setting where it's just burning hot, watermelon juice, coconut, anything, even lassi, which is a drink from India, but it's basically yogurt blended with water with some spices. You can make it sweet with mangoes. That's extremely cooling to the system. So just knowing how to take what's going on around you and cool your jets fast will keep you feeling soothed and calm and collected, which is what a Pitta craves to feel, because for the most part, they are a bit like the Vata. They do have a mind that's going a million miles a minute. And so their body has to stay cool so that they can continue to do the work that they want to do. And so that's kind of a generalization. I'm not going so deep into the doshas, but you might say by now, okay, I am definitely a Vata and I have some Pitta, or I am a Pitta, but I have some Vata mind traits. So it's kind of interesting to kind of take a dosha quiz and get to understand for yourself which one you are. And then you can understand a few quick tools to help you balance yourself. I had someone take my dosha quiz recently and she said, oh my God, I feel like you just read me completely and you know me completely. And I thought that was so cool that, people can see themselves in the doshas and then come to understand slowly how to balance that. So then let's dive into Kapha, the third dosha, the final dosha. Kapha dosha is earth with water. And so earth meaning Mother Earth, grounding, all of that. A Kapha person from a body standpoint is stronger. They're bigger boned is what you'd also call it, right? They can be a little bit on the heavier side, sturdy, but also just stronger. Like I find some of the women I work out with at my gym who can lift 3 times heavier than I am. I'm like, you just have a different bone structure. Like if I did that, I'd break. So these are people who can lift more and be really muscular and strong as well. Kapha people they eat well. They're going to eat their 3 square meals. They have a tendency towards congestion because that earth plus water, like congestion in the nose, congestion in the digestive system, their system runs slower. So they have to really watch the kinds of foods they eat that they aren't going to slow down digestion. So not heavy fat, not as much fried food. They shouldn't have things that are too mucus causing, like dairy, which will cause a real slowdown in their system. Kapha people tend to be one thing at a time. So their mind is one thing at a time plodding forward. So kind of like a turtle, like one step at a time. They're going to win the race, but it's going to be one step at a time. A Kapha person tends to be very loyal. They care deeply about the people around them. They're the caretakers. They're the ones who are loving and nurturing. So if you think of your grandma, she's going to carry a lot of Kapha energy. If you think of a caretaker who's taking care of their family, a lot of times when we drop into caretaker roles, and I've talked about this on past podcasts with my dear friend Bernie, sometimes we switch all of a sudden into a caretaker role and we also switch into a very Kapha mindset for those few years. And then we have to slowly work ourselves back to our original selves. And I can imagine that probably happened to a lot of people in the pandemic as well. Like our roles switched in and out with what was needed around us, especially more for women. And then Kapha person tends to do, like I said, one thing at a time. They tend to be fiercely loyal. Like their negative trait is if you are a Kapha's friend, they're going to be so attached to you and protective of you that they're going to get jealous or frustrated if they can't have you as their friend. Like they're very, they want to keep you close, and they can tend towards that jealousy or frustration if they feel like they're not getting the attention or the closeness to their own people who they consider their people. A Kapha person can also have a tendency towards low mood and depression. Kapha people tend to be more tired, more fatigued when out of balance. They're not going to be the people who want to get up and move their bodies. They're going to have this heavier energy, this earth energy that they carry. That's so beneficial because, and I forgot to mention this, but a Kapha person also tends to have curly hair, bigger eyes, a round face. There's certain traits that are so beautifully Kapha. And the Kapha person, to stay in balance, needs to eat lighter foods. They're going to sleep very well anyway. So sleep isn't something they have to work on, but igniting their digestion is important. So the digestive fire in Ayurveda is called Agni. That's what we call the digestive fire. Agni means fire. And so for the Kapha crew, my goal is for them to ignite that digestive fire every morning consciously. So a few quick tips for that would be when you wake up, start with room temperature water, preferably in a copper container. We like the remineralization of copper overnight and then drinking that water, but also incorporating like a ginger lemon tea. Ginger lemon honey tea is also fine, but we don't love honey in very hot water. So ginger lemon tea or aloe vera juice. There's an aloe vera juice brand I love called George's that I keep in my fridge. I buy it at Whole Foods or Sprouts, and it tastes like nothing. It tastes like water, which is why I like that brand the best. I don't want the taste of aloe vera personally. And these two things can really ignite the digestive fire, which is thus going to ignite the Kapha body to get in motion, which is a big deal. You want to get in motion, get moving, get up, because Kapha energy will keep you in bed longer. Kaphas can sleep for 10 hours. They still don't want to get out of bed. There's just a different nature to Kapha. And in modern day society, the only template that's being really sold to us as ideal is get up and go and hustle and stay up all night and work all day like crazy and have 3 jobs and build your side. I mean, there's so much hustle mindset, and it goes opposite to what Ayurveda says. Ayurveda says, honor your dosha, know who you are, live according to your vibrant health within your dosha, because that is your born nature. You're not going to change what nature and body type you were born to. Learn to love the body type you have, which is also an interesting journey. And then learn the tools you need to stay balanced within your dosha. Like, know your tools, use them constantly and consistently. And slowly, and I've been asked this many times, like, how do I do more? Like, I took your 6-week program, now what? I'm like, now do the work more. Just take it deeper. So now as a Pitta, I design my whole life according to the year. I work really hard January through May. Everything that's big and challenging in my business, I want it wrapped by May. And I want a season of easy work. I want to know that I'm going to chill a bit in the summer. I have to stay indoors. I can't be in hustle mode in the summer. I can't go call on 1,000 doctors for my supplements in the summer. I would just burn out, explode, and quit. That's not going to function for my body type. But instead, I can focus on my podcast. I can focus on a lot of things. Whatever keeps me indoors in the AC, staying cool, calm, and collected will keep me on my path. And so same for Kapha. Kapha needs that support to have like a buddy or a friend to help them go exercise in the morning so that their body is in motion, their mind is in motion, their digestive system has the support to be moving, and thus they are in motion to go do what it is that they want to do. The Vata people need the opposite. They need those 3 meals a day. They need structure. They need to use a more fall-winter menu of heavy foods and stews and healthy fats like avocado and consistently eat that every day. So that's why I wanted to share the doshas, because if you understand your dosha type, all of a sudden you have an entirely new toolkit that no one ever told you about that you can use. You can focus on sleep more if you're a Vata. You can focus on exercise and moving more if you're a Kapha. If you're a Pitta, keep your cooling tools nearby. I keep my water nearby. Like, I have to have cooling tools on hand. Even peppermint tea is a cooling thing. So if you eat something that doesn't suit you, I just pull peppermint tea out of my purse in any business meeting, and all of a sudden I can like cool my system as if I'm like a nuclear reactor and I'm managing the calibration of that temperature. That's how closely I manage to my dosha. I manage my schedule to my dosha. So if this Monday, which today for me is a Monday, I'm doing 2 podcast recordings and I'm being interviewed on podcasts, like that's a big day. Then the next day has to be the yin to that yang. It has to be more chill, relaxed, cool, calm, and collected. And then the following day can be a powerhouse day again. So learning how to build your whole life around your dosha, in my opinion, allows you to leverage your energy and your capacity to achieve the goals you want faster and more consistently. And I think that that's really huge. In this day and age where many of us want to create big things and do big things, okay, but those things never happen at the speed you want. And so how do you stay in the game while building your health, not trashing your health over time on the way to that goal? And then the other big thing about the doshas that I love is this is the ultimate form of biohacking. Biohacking is you using modern and ancient tools to biohack the body, biohack the mind. What does that mean? It means investing in longevity. It means getting the results you want for your body in a shorter time frame. It means optimizing your health in a powerful way, but doing so using the tools around you. And so to me, so much of what the biohacking community is using is ancient wisdom from Ayurveda that we're proving with modern science works, but people are forgetting the doshas along the way. And I know why. It's a complex topic. It's heavy. It's not something you can easily understand yourself. Typically, I have to jump on a phone call with people and help them ascertain what their childhood dosha was, versus what they are now, and then what that plan of action is to bring them into balance. But once you have that toolkit, you've got it for life. And that's what I really like is once you know it, you've got it. And you can constantly prove to yourself if it's right or wrong, although I think it's always right. But you can constantly prove to yourself like, okay, I'm a Pitta and she said coconut water. And dude, that really works. That's it. That has saved me from 50 fights with my husband, 100 fights with my kids. And then think about this. If you know the doshas of your family or your partner or your significant other, just like you could know their human design, just like you could know their disc profile, if you knew more about the people around you, how differently would you manage them? So sometimes I look at my husband and I'm like, he's going to have a long day with the kids. Let's make sure he gets breakfast because he's a pure Pitta like I am. And I literally carry salads and foods around with me because I know how hangry I can get if I miss a meal. And so I look at him and say, okay, that's my investment in my kids being treated much more nicely today because he's not going to get hangry. Here's a great breakfast with some healthy fat. You're good for the day, just like I set up the kids for the day. And I myself grab a salad on the way out the door. I've supported myself for my dosha. So that's how simply we can adjust our lives around this concept. And it can really profoundly change your quality of life. I have found that my life has gotten easier. I'm much happier. I'm much more balanced. I constantly and consistently do tea time is me time or take my supplements. And I can see it in my own blood work. When I go to a functional medicine doctor, they're like, you're this close to perfect. Everything looks great. I'm like, I know. Let's just fix that last bit and be as optimal as possible. So I wanted to share this topic on doshas with you today. I have a dosha quiz on my website at shivanigupta.com. That's a great dosha quiz that you can take. And then if you want to go much deeper, I have a much bigger, deeper dosha quiz as well. And then I have a 6-week program where people can dive in and fully understand what I shared with you with PowerPoints and quizzes and all the different details. But doshas is a powerful topic that I love to share on because leveraging your dosha for yourself as an entrepreneur, as a mother, father, as someone in the corporate workspace who wants to stay more balanced in your health, for your children and running your household better, where you are actually handling everyone's health at this deeper level that you may never have thought of, can be very powerful. If you look at your child and say, wow, he's a Vata, I need to manage that differently and he'd be less Vata crazy. That's pretty cool that you can be raising your kids in a way that keeps them more grounded and centered, and thus the whole household feels more grounded and centered. So there's a lot to it. I just wanted to thank you guys for joining me for this episode today. I have so much more information for you available at shivanigupta.com, and you can follow this podcast on Instagram at Fusionary Health. If you want to follow this podcast, you'll find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your shows. And this show is brought to you by Fusionary Formulas, my supplement company. So you can use the code Fusionary Health to get 15% off at Fusionary. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you enjoyed learning about the doshas, and I'll see you soon.